Budget meeting. Call to order the Budget and Finance Committee meeting Tuesday, June 6, 2023 at 6 p.m. Gateway Administrative Office Boardroom. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, this is our second advertised budget meeting. We do have a number of board members in attendance. Also, I'm sure some individuals on the line, including our central office personnel who's present today as well. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Zarellis for the final public hearing review of the 2023-24 fiscal year proposed final summary general fund budget. Mr. Zarellis.
Thank you, Dr. Short. Thanks everyone for coming on. I apologize if my voice is raspy. I'm fighting a head cold or sinuses or too much budget crunching by too many budget numbers the last 2 weeks. But Dr. Singh, after the last budget presentation, asked me if we could do it in a spreadsheet. So I did it in a spreadsheet for you.
Got the spreadsheet.
To make it easy to understand. And then I also have the PowerPoint if you want to get bored to death with that. So I'm going to start with department by department. There was some changes from the last presentation. Good and bad. Revenues increased and expenses increased. But I'll go through it line by line. I do have every department on here. If anyone wants to go look at a certain department, say, what's the makeup of this? They're all on here. We can look at it in 2 seconds. So we'll start at the top with Dr. Short. Right here is budget increase by $5,000. We joined a magazine. It's going to have articles on Gateway and local magazine.
It's at in Monroeville Magazine. They reached out to us. We've done that in the past. They're expanding their magazine. It's delivered to a number of households within the community and area businesses as well.
And
Yes, we'll supply them with articles, news story, similar to what is sent out by the various buildings, but we'll consolidate and then have that in the magazine.
our next one's Dr. Chakey. We had an increase of $7,000 from last year, but we were able to purchase items almost $60,000 for the shields and the protective items out of this year's budget. So that was a big win. Next is Andrea from Human Resources. This is the killer in the salaries and benefits, went up $1,361,000. That is due to the hiring of an equity director and 8 new teachers. The total of that is $493,528. And also included at $1,361,680 is Kelly Services, the buyback for health insurance buyout, and a retiree's health insurance. Moving on.
Health insurance increases in that as well.
Yes, no, it's just the next one. I'm sorry.
There it is.
I have 2 budget items. One is just I take within my budget all the utilities within the building, the bond payments, things of that nature. We paid off the 2012 bond. We had a savings of $907,000. I don't know if you can see that, but then we had I had that account for the mall this year of $500,000. So that was the offset of $407,000. Number 9.
What does that say about the mall?
Well, we had the mall in my budget. I had that account. I had a savings in my budget of $907,000 because we paid the 2012 bond offers, no more payments. But I had that account, had an additional $500,000 out of my budget for when we do the mall refund, which is going to be $3 million. So far, over the last 3 years, we've accumulated $2.5 million with another $500,000 in this year. So we're $3 million ready to pay them off. So it's not going to affect any of our general fund when the mall settles, which is, well, it's supposed to settle this fall.
Supposed to. This is the second assessment appeal that essentially we've had to provide funding back to the mall property owners. The first time was nearly $2 million.
Oh, yeah.
And then this one will reflect almost 3 million. So you could see the lack of storefronts, the lack of shopping taking place there, and they need to reinvent themselves.
Yeah, they're our biggest taxpayer when it comes to real estate.
We need that mall, and I do know, and I'm not sure if it's open or not, the hospital, Veterans Hospital, and I'm not sure,
Slating to open up this month.
Yeah.
and I'm not sure if we're getting the taxes for that.
Well, if it's non-profit, we won't. Yeah, it's non-profit, we won't get it.
I thought if it was on the property, they were building on that property.
Oh, I don't know. I'll have to ask Mr. Dice. Yeah.
It would be needed.
Moving on, the next item is the health care. Like Dr. Short said, it went up 14%, so that's a $685,000. Now the next item, just so you're all aware, Bonnie has 2 budgets. She does one for the board. Mr. Boba asked me to increase it for board travel. So I put $4,000 there just to make the board members aware that they can travel without EIU at different events or conferences and get reimbursed their mileage. Any questions on that?
So there is money in there for board members who wish to. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
4,000 means $100 per.
Well, no, it just,
Depends on where you're going, or yeah. But California's nice too.
yeah. Moving on to CIC, an increase of $36,857, and we leave with $12,000 in there for the library as recommended, and then she also had to purchase some additional textbooks. We've done Evergreen, the same thing. All these buildings are about the same increase, like 30 to 40,000, because the textbook purchases, and we leave $12,000 for all the libraries as recommended from Mr. Mateo at Evergreen. Same thing. Now, Ramsey was a little bit higher because she had to buy additional textbooks with transitions. She had to buy some additional supply. Jen Hoffner, same thing, 33,000 went up because of the library and additional textbooks. And Micah's budget went up 671,282, but we cut out 514,000. Out of that was 300,000 was a server, which we're going to use next year. The remaining 214,000, excuse me, we were able to purchase items with money coming out of this year from different accounts. We did some budget transfers. So we were able to purchase everything he wanted except for the server between the money left over from this year and going forward to next year. And keep in mind, the technology keeps increasing for the students, the technology, the software, that his number is going to keep increasing as well.
Dr. Rossi, I saw some nice Apple virtual reality headsets that were released. Yeah, and the new MacBook Airs. So I'm sure Micah is aware of that. Are you, Micah?
I am aware of it, but it is currently not in the budget.
So our iPads will be replaced with iPad books.
We're in a cycle of iPads. So
And then next to Sarah Keller at the high school, her budget actually decreased, and a big part of that was because we've been buying curriculum over a 5-year plan now. It helps save the school district money in the long run. And Michael Jackson, the middle school went up, but he's taking that. His budget includes all 4 grades for now until the move happens. So he's trying to order enough supplies to cover everything for the move. And Mr. Rossi at the high school, Mr. Stevens came down, the same thing, because their curriculum purchased over a 5-year period. Athletics, Dawn Hall, the increase was for the pole vault, the scorers table, and the swim blocks, which the board already approved and has been ordered. That makes up to 168,000. If not, it would be like about 480,000, which is the normal cycle for clothes. For uniforms, are all on a cycle. Monica stayed the same. Heather for special ed went up 416,125, and I had a meeting with her, and there's a lot of kids, especially in elementary grades, that have special ed needs because of COVID. So she's trying to culminate them. And our special ed funding we get in revenue went up as well. And then now we get down to Bob's, Bonnie's is the same for transportation, 4,716,000. Now Bob Brown's for the custodial, I combined them together, and because last year, let me just jump right down so we're all on the same page here. All the capital projects that Bob had in for last year were cut out of the budget just to get the budget balance. But we were fortunate enough, we had a windfall from 21-22, 843,718. So we were able to utilize that to do the paving of UP, the paving of Ramsey, the scoreboards, the repair to stadium, the North project, and the doors at Gateway High School. So that money was actually, that was a big win for us.
Reflected from the closing of one building.
Yeah, yeah.
With the closing of one of our buildings, Gateway Middle School, during the renovation, we incurred no cost over there. So we essentially mothballed a building while we're renovating it. You see the reflection of an increase.
So talking about the schools, so University Park, so one of my friends' daughter graduated, so she went from K to fourth grade completed, and they had a dance beside them and the student, and she was,
Yeah.
so you hear about all the stories about transfers and all that, study from beginning to the end.
Mhm.
So getting back to Bob's budget, I spread out capital projects and just all the regular maintenance supplies, the toilet paper, all that kind of stuff. So to that effect, his budget actually increased 690,000, and the board already approved 588,000 just to get a lot of projects started for this year, capital projects for the asbestos and paving. So
North entrance.
the north entrance.
Buildings have asbestos.
Oh, there was like,
I think the high school had a couple of rooms.
Yeah.
That they were just mitigating. But very few buildings have asbestos left. Yeah. The last one was, of course, Gateway Middle School, where it's completely abated.
a lot of these projects we wanted to get a jump on just because of supply chain issues. We're trying to get everything ready for school to start next year and have everything in place.
Paving's happened at Ramsey University
Yeah.
Park, I believe, next week.
Yeah.
Gateway High School, after the fields are done on the back, and then the parking lot and off the Gateway campus. So
And then the last is Dr. Rossi's budget. But if you look down below, the Yesers, because he's a federal coordinator, that's for the air conditioning. It's going to have, they're doing somewhat now, that because of supply chain issues, it's going to be completed after the next school year, UP and Evergreen. So we have to carry that 4,448,234 into next year until the project's complete. Then we'll back out. So Dr. Rossi's budget is actually 311,166.
they will be completing some very minimal work
Yeah.
in preparation for the air conditioners that Evergreen and University Park over the summer. But the condensers aren't available yet.
And that's what the 4 million is to be.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Right. Yes, that's from the ESSER's funding. So at the end of the day, our total proposed budget is $96,246,648. It's an increase of $3,737,948 from last year. Any questions? And, how are we gonna pay for all this? We're very fortunate. Make sure everybody can see this.
And some COVID money left.
Scratch offs.
Yeah. Okay. With no tax increase, excuse me. Our biggest number one revenue is our real estate tax, be 48,129,503. See if you can see it. Okay. There we go. I'm gonna come down line by line. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. There's not a lot of revenue accounts. Public utility,
What is the hard income tax?
the earned income tax, that's the 1% they take out of your wages. And since COVID, it's been going up about 100,000 a year. I think that's our second biggest local revenue source is earned income tax. The real estate transfer tax has been doing really well because everyone's still buying and selling houses. The mercantile, we get a cut to $2,292,000 of every purchase made in Monroeville. We get a small piece of the pie, and Monroeville gets the bigger part of that, but still, it's been increasing by 300,000 years since COVID. Delinquent real estate's been doing really well. They just settled on this property down there by Sheets. I think we got about 300,000 out of that. Across of Sheets at golf range.
McDane's driving range, yeah. It actually sold, and the new property owners had to pay the back taxes in order to acquire the property, so. Sheets right down on 48,
Yeah,
right across the street. There's,
Yeah.
McDane's.
Then the delinquent earned income tax, it's been pretty solid, around 135,000. The LST, that's not much. The mercantile, that's delinquent mercantile. Monroeville's really stepped it up, going after people that haven't been paying their mercantile tax since COVID. But this is my favorite one here. Our investments doubled. We're making on interest and dividends from last year. We had budgeted 300,000 last year. We're already up to 768,000 this year.
The interest rates shifted
Yeah,
in
it's
our
up.
favor.
What I try to do, we have $21 million in our PSLAP for our investment account right now. I monitor like a payroll's gonna happen next week. I'll move the money. We're getting 4.8%, where PNC gives us like 2%. So I move it into PNC to pay the bills and keep as much invested as possible.
When they start to increase, it becomes a nice little shell game.
Right.
I can remember Mr. Shaw doing it almost
Yeah, he had it.
2 weeks or
He
3
had it
weeks.
done.
He's moving money around. So
Yeah, he had it
just
done.
earn better interest rates with this.
On the gate receipts, I opt that because I'm assuming with the new field, things are going to keep increasing. This is for disability students. It's been pretty consistent at 784,000. Facility rentals, I increased that by 26,000. The same thing I think with our stadiums and our fields. People are,
Do we rent all our, somebody
Yeah.
just called me yesterday and asked, do we rent our?
Yes.
I wasn't sure. I told you to
It's not a
contact our
rental. However, it's used so frequently in order to get someone that has the date open that's available. Where we have an opening, it's very rare.
Who do they contact?
But,
yeah.
I wasn't sure what about what, but I thought, well, maybe
all the
Don,
person has
that's
to
why I
do is
said.
go online and fill out the request.
Yeah.
Everything's online.
Yeah.
Okay. Go to the website, go on Don.
It's all right there.
Okay.
The other contributions are just miscellaneous donations. The energy efficient, excuse me. That's at a couple board meetings ago. I explained that NRG, we get a rebate for shutting our power off every so often, 27,000. Refund of prior year's expenditures, that's where you overpay somebody and they pay us back or they shouldn't have charged us. The miscellaneous is around 140,000. So our total local revenue is 59 million. Move on to the state. Our state subsidy increased this year by 1,880,000 to 10,375,000. The Social Security, that's just a half. The state reimburses us. Special ed, like I mentioned earlier when I was going through Heather's budget, it increased by 353,000 up to 2,909,000. Transportation's made pretty flat, 842,000. Debt service is refunding. When we pay the bonds twice a year, they give us money back. The property tax, this is the money from the casinos. It's a homestead allocation on everyone's property tax. I think ours is like $234, but it ends up being 1,840,000. The Ready to Learn block grants, but pretty consistent at 385,000. Then our retirement, half of our PASERs for the state's portion was 6,315,000. So the total state subsidies is 24,951,793. Any questions? Moving on to federal. Title I went up this year.
So I was at an AIDS research center in New York City. And some people, one family, support brought us over there. And so when we have a table like this, and the difference, the family will manage. Those were some of the biggest changes.
When I had to sign that check rebate to the Monroeville Mall.
So Title I increased by 185,000. Title II actually went down a little bit. And Title IV went up to 65,360. There's that ESSER's funding we're going to carry over in the next year. So the total federal subsidies is 6,123,370. So the total combined of state, local, and federal was 90,135,140. You can see our expenditures were 96,246. So we're going to take 3,470,000 out of our fund balance. And a tax increase of 2,641,508. We'll have a balanced budget. Which for all the increases in good and bad, I'm very satisfied with the way things started out. Any questions? So getting to the fund balance, I'll just go through it real quick. This is the driver right here. If the school board agrees to do a tax increase, our fund balance at the end of next year, June of 2024, will be 9,460,000. Our budget's 96,246,648, which is going to leave us 9.829% in our fund balance. They recommend between 5 and 15%. And if we don't raise taxes, we keep the same budget, fund balance next year is going to be 3 million less. It's going to be 6,819,000. And it's going to leave us 7.08% in our fund balance.
I'm sorry, you're saying
If we don't raise taxes, our fund balance in next year is going to be 6,819,000. But don't forget, there's 3 million right here for the mall. If you don't raise taxes, you take another 3 million out of the fund balance, which is a disaster. I wouldn't recommend it. And
And just to be clear, when you take out the fund balance, that money has to come out again the following year.
Right.
So we did the rip.
Pretty close.
So it's not always recommended to take out of the fund balance
Right.
to balance the budget.
And Mr. Boba asked me the last time he wanted to do the history of the fund balance. So I went back the last 10 years, right here. This is our budget, column C, all these numbers. This is our ending fund balance. This is the percent of the fund balance. And like I said at the last meeting, you just go to great rate when you refinance for the middle school. It was like 1.99. They recommend your fund balance between 5 and 15%. My hat's off to every school board member, administrator that maintained this fund balance of over 10% for all these years. Your average fund balance for 10 years is 14.12. You're at the top of the charts. And the same thing for your house. If you have a lot of equity in your house, you're going to get a loan, you're going to get a better rate. So
Back in 2014, 2013.
So
it's 13.33.
my point being, next year will be very challenging
Yeah.
to recover
Because you're talking seven.
because you will be pulling out of the fund balance.
Right. You don't want to go down like if we raise taxes and our fund balance ends up at 9,460,000, it's almost 10%, 9.83. That's pretty consistent. You don't want to go any lower than that. Any questions?
So it will be about same rates as last year if we are doing it.
Right. Because when you, any questions on this, I'll jump into the slide.
You're saying, okay, by not raising,
But by not raising taxes over here, if you don't raise taxes, your fund balance is going to be 7% next year.
And what he's pointing out is by having a tax increase, we're also taking out of the
Right.
fund balance as well. So it's a tax increase and fund balance.
Right. Yeah, because we're short like almost $7 million. So we're raising taxes for $2,641,000 right here. And the $3 million out of that $3,470,000 right there is for the mall. So they're taking $470,000 out of the fund balance to get everything in balance. The malls, I wish it could pay it off. It's a lot of extra work. It's just it's a
Putting away
nuisance. Yeah, just bury it, be done, move on.
for the last 4 or 5 years, it's been in the courts, and during that process, you know, it's just the amount goes up.
Yeah, and it's
other than the mall, what is our next biggest revenue, since we can't, hospitals were out, what's our next?
Probably the Miracle Mile.
yeah, Miracle Mile, I would have to say. Yeah.
So Mike, could you help me if you would, please help me by characterizing the difference in the value of a dollar in 2013 versus the value of a dollar today, because you could buy a dozen eggs for $1 10 years ago. The same
True.
dozen eggs is $2 now. So when you put those numbers up, and I think in column, what is it? I can't see the column number, but the rightmost column shows that we're about 13 and 15 and 20 and then 14, average of about 14%.
Right.
So in terms of the relative value of money, would you characterize us as being efficient?
Oh, very efficient. Very efficient.
Tell me
Maintain-
more about that.
Well, I was here when Paul did all the bond, we worked with Moody's and different people to get the bonds. The first thing they did was look at your fund balance history for 10 years. That's the very first thing. And my prior school district, our fund balance is like 5%. So when we got loans, our rates were a lot higher.
Noticed there was an article on Norway in the paper today where they're not raising taxes. And the fund balance will be depleted, and it'll be close to 7 or 6%. And they're reaching a dangerous threshold there.
So,
And you want to maintain a positive fund balance just because things come up. You don't know. You're doing construction, maybe. Like, I know there was a story at the high school. There was uh, something with the ground. There was an old coal mine underneath it. The insurance didn't cover it. So there's things you got to think outside the box. You got to be prepared. Unexpected.
Unforeseen conditions,
Right.
they call it, that insurance would not.
Yeah. We might end up hiring more teachers. I mean, we might get bomb with students this year.
Why would that happen? What are you theorizing?
Because the middle school wants, I think a lot of families, they see
gonna
the middle
attract a
school,
lot
it's
of-
gonna
go ahead.
attract people, the sports facilities, this is an A1 operation in everything. From the staff, to student body, to teachers, Dr. Short, all administrator, everything's run smooth.
Also have a really great finance director, right?
Honestly, I mean, when I did this yesterday, I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible to see these numbers like this, and it because of frugal spending all these years. There's some school districts that have this kind of money, they're not spending it wisely. The students suffer. I mean, at the end of the day, no matter what numbers, this, that, it's all about the students. And the graduation was just amazing. So I sat there listening to kids talk and speak, and I said, this is we're doing the right thing.
All right, so let's flip back to me because I'm not a finance expert, and that's okay. I'm an expert in everything else. But when I first started about 8 years ago, the national debt was like 17 trillion, and I was furious about that, and I'm frustrated about it. I think we should pay our debts off, and on and on and on. I mean, everybody wants to not be in debt. We understand that. So it's no longer 17 trillion. The national debt has just been voted on to be something like, what, 30, 31, some big number. So it's a little higher than 17. It's like 30. So that's why I'm bringing up this question.
Yeah.
What does that number 17 trillion 10 years ago, how many dozen eggs could you buy? Could you buy the same number of dozen eggs with 30 trillion that you bought back then? In other words, is the value of money somehow being about the same, but we have to use bigger numbers to get the same purchasing power? And if that's true, and I think it is, then these numbers that you're putting up here, they're just...
I paid 49 cents for eggs.
I'm making up numbers here.
That's a 20%
Just making up numbers.
Huge increase.
There's no,
Yeah.
the staff's pretty much the same.
Right,
So
the,
just- we're just
the
keeping-
staff's the same, the kids are the same, the need to buy eggs and milk and gasoline and tires, it's the same amount of need that our district has.
Saying
We
less.
have to have
Probably about
the
20%
adjustments here.
increase. I mean, just look at the budget number, 70 million
The
to
inflation
100
of
million.
the general supplies that we purchased.
Oh, it's nuts.
That's what I was gonna say. If you look at the overall budget, there's a 4% increase from last year to this year's proposal. But when you look at national inflation for the last year, it's
That's what I'm getting at.
8.26%.
That-
So we're still below inflation rate.
So I choke on that a little bit. I also choke on the value, the price paid for healthcare. I mean, I'm in healthcare information technology. What is it that's so magic about healthcare that we have to have like a 14% increase in it?
A lot of it,
Yeah.
the information came back to certain drugs that became available.
Procedures or machines and technologies, I understand.
A lot of drugs that have.
But the price should go down. I mean, my name's John. I want the price to go down, not up.
More in drugs than any other.
Exactly.
Well, I can speak to that. I went to the ASHIC meeting. They are they're modifying the formulary to not include certain things. Like right now, the big hitter for health insurance companies is Ozempic.
Yeah.
Everyone's utilizing it as a weight loss drug, not just a diabetic management medicine. That is killing our health insurance system and the insurance carriers trying to cover it.
Minutes with that.
It's insane. So our formulary has now removed that from one of the insured products, unless if you are a diabetic and you need it for diabetes. They've chosen to do that with a few other drugs as well that they noticed are being utilized for the wrong reasons, and also I say the wrong reasons because there's a greater need out there and it's constraining the system for those people who genuinely have the need to manage a dire health condition versus utilizing it for an alternative reason to help you physically. Additionally, I can speak to, from coming from private industry, we have been very spoiled here with the health insurance increases over the years. I know as soon as I left the ASHIC meeting, I was freaking out, 14%, how are we gonna handle that? And I called the lady who replaced me, and her first comment was they went up 23%. And that was
who's
with
they went up?
negotiating their health insurance with Highmark as well.
Okay.
It's pretty much an apples to apples plan, but they have a high deductible version versus we have a low copay plan.
We've averaged 2 to 3% increase, and then all of a sudden, boom, this year.
Whereas private industry's been generally hit with double digits in the last few years, and now they're over 20% increase, which a lot of it everyone anticipated from COVID fallout to some extent. Everyone's been saying prepare to get hit with that tab eventually here, but with being a part of the consortium, that kind of adds an additional barrier to some extent. I know they've continued to expand their network to allow other
That was a
counties
big
in.
issue where ASHIC is Allegheny County School Health Insurance Consortium. However, they began to expand 6, 7, 8 years ago to include Westmoreland County, Fayette County,
Right.
and they were doing so too quickly. And when you add that many more insurers into the package, you see the cost of
Pulling.
out there.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting dynamic, but I can speak to historically what I've discussed with Julie as to what year over year we've seen increase wise. We've been very fortunate at Gateway, and as members of ASHIC, this year most certainly is crippling, but as best as I can deduce from speaking to others in my profession, we're all getting hit together as well.
Right.
I completely agree with you, though. Healthcare should go down. We have
I'm
great
in favor of
advancements in
that, yeah.
technology, buddy. It only makes sense.
All right, so this is our corner of the world, education. I'm satisfied with the numbers that you've showed us. In other words, they seem to make pretty good sense to me. I'm not a financial expert, but I don't have any questions about the recommendation that you're making.
Exactly.
So you were asking if we had any questions. I don't have any more questions.
Thank you. You have any more questions?
Just breaking news, graduation ceremony in Virginia, there's a shooting, mass shooting.
Oh.
Unfortunate.
Well, if no one else has any questions, I will put the resolution together for Tuesday's board meeting for the tax increase. And this will be on the website if anyone wants to look at it. If anyone has any questions, feel free to give me a call.
Very good.
Thank you, Mike. Meeting adjourned.
Meeting adjourned. Miko, thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Go.